Next month, you will have your say in the general election. Tonight, this audience has questions for the leader of Plaid Cymru, Adam Price. But will they get the answers? Welcome to Ask the Leader. Good evening, croeso. Welcome to the Temple of Peace and Health in Cardiff. Well, in just over 3 weeks, Wales goes to the polls in what's considered to be the most significant general election for a generation. Tonight, we are joined by an audience keen to put their questions to the leader of Plaid Cymru over the next half hour. They represent a wide range of viewpoints, and Adam Price has had no prior warning of the questions. Later this week, there will be audience programmes with other party leaders. And if you're watching at home or online, you too can join the debate on social media. The hashtag is #AskTheLeader. Well, straight to our first question then, which tonight comes from Evan Hall. Evan.
Wales voted to leave. Even if things have changed, is Plaid Cymru ignoring the will of the British people, or the Welsh people?
Well, you know, I think the fundamental commandment, if you like, of any politician is to be honest. And when people ask me, you know, is Brexit going to help Wales or is it going to hurt Wales? I have to say it's going to hurt Wales, you know. And it's probably going to hurt Wales more than other parts of the UK because of the nature of our economy. You know, we export more proportionally to the EU than other parts of the UK. You know, think about key sectors: agriculture, aerospace, the automotive sector, the bedrock of our economy. And you know, I've seen what deindustrialization can do to Wales. You know, my father went underground when he was 14. He was thrown on the slag heap economically in the 1980s. And I don't want to see any other family go through what we had to experience in the 1980s if there's any way of avoiding that sort of economic disaster. So, you know, I want us to grasp every opportunity that we can to avert what I think will be, you know, tremendously difficult for Wales. You know, it'll decimate our agricultural sector. You know, it'll rock the foundations of our manufacturing sector. And we're even teetering now, aren't we? Look at what's happening with Ford. Look at what's happening with Tata. You know, I want to see the Welsh economy rising. I want to see a decade of transformation. You know, we can go from where we are. We're at the bottom of the economic league table in the UK at the moment. But, you know, we don't have to accept that. You know, we can invest in the skills of our people. We can invest in our infrastructure. We could be at the forefront of the green industrial revolution, just like we were with the original one a few hundred years ago. But all of that will be so much more difficult if at the start of that decade, you know, we have a Brexit deal, whether it's a Labour Brexit or a Conservative Brexit, which will actually, you know, cause untold damage to our economy. And, you know, the Party of Wales has to actually defend Wales, and we have to be honest with the people as well.
Launching this general election campaign, you said you wanted to heal a broken country. How can you bring a country together by ignoring the majority of the voters in the referendum? I
don't think anyone should ignore that, you know, leave a vote. And that's why I think it's only the people that can actually change that mandate. And that's why I feel
but
democratically...
what are you doing to reach out to leave voters?
Well, look, I think that leave vote, I mean, everyone will have a different reason personally for the leave vote. But I think much of it was a sense of exasperation, right? You know, Wales, which has seen intergenerational poverty decade after decade, we've been neglected. You know, there is deep poverty within our society, and I think people were voting for Brexit, many of them, because they wanted change. Unfortunately, this change, the Brexit that's on offer, will not deliver the kind of improvement that we need. So we need a better change project.
These voters were wrong, and in all your target seats, more or less, they're in leave areas. You're trying to woo voters by telling them they were wrong. How does that work?
Well, look, I think that people respect politicians that are clear and honest. I don't think that you can go into this election as Jeremy Corbyn is doing and by refusing to say where he stands on the single most important issue at the heart of the election. I think that we can respect each other while we sincerely disagree, but I have to be honest, I have to say it as I believe it is. You know, I didn't go into politics to tell people what I thought they wanted to hear. I went into politics to say, you know, clearly and honestly what I believe, and it's then for the people to decide whether they agree.
Okay, let's see if you'd agree. The gentleman in the back.
You say that you're the party of Wales, representing Wales's interests, but you're conspiring with other parties to not stand in certain seats. How can you call yourself the party of Wales? You're just trying to stop us from leaving the EU. I'd say you're more like the party of Brussels.
Okay, let's take some other points. Who else had their hand up? Yes, the gentleman there.
Isn't the rest of the world a big enough platform to sell our goods and our skills?
And in the front here?
Rhys Adam, you're making the economic arguments again. These are the failed arguments of 2016. I voted Remain, with some, troubles over the economy. But what about the political fallout that's going to happen if you don't respect referendums? You believe the devolution referendums are sacrosanct. Why is this one so easily cast away?
Okay. Can you take that point? Because I'm sure we will come on to pacts later and any deals with other parties. But this point here and the gentleman in the back there.
I think there was a fatal flaw, you know, honestly, at the heart of the 2016 referendum, because partly because it was put forward by a Conservative Prime Minister that didn't believe in the proposition, you know, the proposition to leave at the heart of the referendum. And so there was no plan behind it. You know, the work hadn't been done. And I think much of the chaos and the going round in circles over the last 3.5 years stems from that fatal flaw. You know, there was no precise version of Brexit, and there were many different versions. And so in this election, we even have Nigel Farage as an ultra-Brexiteer, might have done a U-turn since, but saying at the beginning of the campaign that the Brexit deal on offer was almost or virtually worse than remaining in the European Union, because he regarded it as Brexit in name only. The only way to resolve this, I think, is to put a deal, the deal that's on the table, back to the people, because then it is clear what people are choosing, the precise terms of the Brexit deal on offer versus, of course, the alternative, which is remaining in the European Union. The only way to test where the public is on that question now is, of course, taking it back to the people in a final confirmatory referendum.
Okay. Somebody mentioned pacts here. Let's take a second question.
I addressed this question.
Well, very briefly, and then we need to move on to the next question.
Look, I understand and I respect people who sincerely want Wales to have a different relationship with the European Union. And, you know, when we're an independent country in the future, the people of Wales can decide that. What I would urge people is this, right? Do we really want to take power from Brussels, as you say, and put it in the hands of Westminster politicians? You know, what have they ever done? Well, you know, seriously, I mean, you know, it wasn't. Look, was it Brussels that closed the mines that my father used to work in the 1980s? It was Westminster government that actually didn't care anything about Wales. We seriously want to give all of that power and put it in the hands of Westminster parties and Westminster governments that don't care less about Wales.
The ones we elect.
No, I don't.
The ones we get to transfer.
Thank you very much. We need to move on to our second question. Let's go now to Dilys Davis. Dilys.
Hello, good evening. A pact with other Remain parties means that you'll be standing down in a number of seats. Where does that leave Plaid voters who don't want to vote for a unionist party?
I understand, you know, it was a very difficult decision for us to make, and I understand, you know, the sacrifice that was being asked of our members, our candidates, and indeed our supporters in those seats. We came to the conclusion, Dilys, you know, that this exceptional times call for exceptional actions. You know, it's not something that we would have done lightly. It's important to point out, of course, that in 7 of those seats, the the unionist parties are standing down in favour of Plaid, and that gives us an opportunity to return the highest number of Plaid MPs, members from Wales's party, the strongest ever independent voice for Wales at Westminster ever in history. So let's grasp that opportunity, which is an incredibly important one at such a historic juncture. But ultimately, Plaid Cymru, what does it mean? It means the party of Wales. We always put Wales before our party. Wales' interests, the national interest, which at this time we believe strongly that it is so important that we grasp every opportunity for Wales to stay in the European Union. And if working together with the other pro-Remain parties maximises that opportunity for Wales, then that's the right thing to do, because we should always put Wales's interests first.
Mr. Price, what about the one pact that you know that could prevent Brexit, which is doing a deal in the event of a hung parliament and supporting Jeremy Corbyn's bid to get into Downing Street? Would you do that?
Well, look, if you do want Wales to remain in the European Union, right, there's only one way that's going to happen, and that's if we elect the strongest, in Wales's case, the strongest number, the highest number ever of Plaid Cymru MPs across the whole of the UK. We need to have a big third block of MPs from the pro-Remain parties. Yeah. That's the one that's going to make the difference, because
would you prefer to see Jeremy Corbyn in Downing Street rather than Boris Johnson? Because with the best will in the world, you're not going to get there. So who can stop Brexit?
Well, I think it's the people, if they choose to support the pro-Remain parties.
With Boris Johnson, it's leaving at the end of January.
For me,
with Jeremy Corbyn, he would buy time, maybe another referendum, but he is the one who can stop your hated Brexit, as you put it.
I disagree. Well, I'm afraid I don't have any confidence in Jeremy Corbyn on this issue. I don't want to.
I don't want a deal.
Because he himself has repeatedly refused to say whether he is even in principle in favour of remaining in the European Union.
But Nicola Sturgeon is willing to hold her nose, if you like, and she said, well, if it takes Jeremy Corbyn, then she'll look at it, and her price would be a second referendum. Would you put a price on, let's say he's 4 short to get into Downing Street. He turns to you and he says, Mr. Price, can I count on you? What do you want? What would be your price?
Look, I don't think that the Labour Party or a Labour government is going to solve all of Wales's problems. In Wales, of course, Labour is part of the problem because they are the governing party in Wales.
So it's better to have Boris Johnson then in Downing Street?
No. Look, I mean, it's a false choice, right? I mean, we've had Conservative governments, we've had Labour governments. They've all let us down, despite the fact for 100 years the people of Wales have put their faith in the Labour Party. That's not how Wales is going to deliver change. Look, they talk about a Green New Deal and a Clean Air Act that they're going to introduce. The Welsh Labour government was taken to court because of its failures over pollution. 2,000 people that die in Wales, 200 in this city because of the failures of a Labour government. They talk about banning 0 hours contracts. The Labour government voted 7 times against Plaid Cymru's motion to ban 0 hours contracts. So I'm afraid I don't trust that the Labour Party is going to solve our problems. Now, what we are prepared to do is to work on a case-by-case basis. Look, I will work with anyone to advance the case of Wales, and whether it's on the question of a referendum or on any other issue, sending the strongest group of independent MPs from Wales being our champions nationally and locally. That's how we deliver change for Wales.
So just not to be putting our
faith, not putting our faith.
Because this question is about pacts.
Yes, let's not put our faith in the Westminster parties.
On a case-by-case basis, you would look at the potential of working with Mr. Corbyn in the event of a hung parliament?
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone who knocks on our door, we will want to see how we can advance the case of Wales, not by propping them up, by standing up for Wales.
So not a coalition, but a case-by-case, deal by deal.
Absolutely, because that's how we can use our leverage. By sending the strongest group of Plaid MPs there, we can get Wales on the political landscape in a way that hasn't happened for generations.
Let's take this gentleman in the front here.
Well, I'm happily retired, and I've got nothing better to do than to watch the political programmes and to read the newspapers. What's come clear to me is that the message you're giving tonight, one which I wholeheartedly support because I think is reasonable and it's well thought out, is completely absent from the daily news programmes. It's either Corbyn or Boris Johnson. Occasionally you get a comment from the SNP, sometimes Northern Ireland. Virtually nothing from Wales, nothing from Wales. And the same with the newspapers. Sunday Times, I'm sure you all read it, nothing about Wales at all. Whether it's a Brexit Wales or a Labour Wales or a Tory Wales or Lib Dem Wales, we don't hear their views at all. And I wondered how you propose to actually get your view that you've expressed tonight over to this great number of Brexit individuals who voted for Brexit in Wales. How are you going to get it over if really your message is closed down?
Live on BBC One at the moment, so this might be a good place.
You're absolutely right, isn't it? I mean, Wales isn't even a blip on the political radar, unfortunately, for the Westminster parties and indeed for the media. I mean, there's another debate on another channel tonight, isn't there? Nobody in Wales will be watching, because we'll all be watching the football. But the fact that we have two English party leaders there, will Wales even be mentioned in that debate? I doubt it. And the only way that we can actually become a priority is if we find our own voice. Look at the difference. Okay. Since Scotland voted in ever greater numbers for the SNP, then Scotland became a key issue on the British political stage. And that's the opportunity for us in Wales.
From the audience, thank you. Gentleman here, and then the gentleman there. Thank you.
Adam, I will vociferously and loudly and proudly say I voted Leave. Right? I will say this with passion right now. People that voted Remain imply that we're fascists, that we are right-wing, that we are uneducated, and you argue that we didn't know what we voted for, and I know exactly what I voted for. What I'm going to ask you, and Jo Swinson, if she's watching, if you're going to defy the will of 17 million people that conclusively, democratically voted to leave the EU, the corrupt, self-serving EU, as I call it, doesn't that make you a fascist and Jo Swinson fascists?
Thank you very much. Yeah. Let's take another point. Can I just take another point very quickly?
So, Adam, you've talked about Labour being part of the problem in Wales, and we've heard some of the stuff about the media. So it seems to be a theme of the devolution settlement at the moment, that it's basically finger-pointing down the M4 between Cardiff Bay and Westminster and the two different governments. How do we increase accountability under devolution so that people understand where these decisions are being made?
Well, I think this is critical, isn't it? Because, look, we either accept that it is inevitable that we stay where we are, bumping along at that bottom of the economic league table, or we change things, And the real change that we need in Wales is for us to take responsibility, for our own future, right? The solutions ultimately are not going to come from Westminster. They never have and they never will. The solutions will only come from Wales, and there's no problem in Wales that we can't fix. And look, I have Leavers in my own family, and I have Leave supporters that are friends, and we're still friends, and we can agree to disagree civilly. And I think that's important as well, that we have that mutual respect, right? We are a divided country, it seems, on that question, right? But I think we can be united by hope in a better future for our country, because wherever we disagree on that question, right, surely we can all agree we should not accept the inevitability of our poverty as a country. That's been the legacy, unfortunately, of putting our faith in those Westminster political parties for too long. There's nothing inevitable about it. We can change Wales, but the first step is starting to believe in ourselves, having self-confidence, and then getting those powers, those economic powers, Wales's infrastructure, the transport infrastructure, terrible. Have you trying to even get into work on Transport for Wales trains at the moment, is an odyssey, right? We can change that, but we can only change it if, for example, we got the power to borrow, to invest in creating a better infrastructure. Westminster government only allows us to borrow just over £1 billion at a time when interest rates are at a historic low. We could massively be investing in our infrastructure to give us the platform to be a successful country that I know that we can be.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think it's time for our next question that comes from Becky Newsom. Becky.
Noswaith dda. The UK has never been more divided or fragile. Is nationalism the answer?
Before you answer, Adam, what do you think, Becky? I mean, how do you view nationalism?
Well, I want a better future for Wales. I mean that in terms of investment, prosperity, Wales having greater say over its future. But Wales, like the rest of the UK, is very divided. And I look at nationalism in other countries like the US, France, even over in England. And nationalism doesn't bring divided communities together. It stokes hatred and increases division. So, yes, I want a better future for Wales, but I also want a Wales that is tolerant, inclusive and welcoming. So if I was going to lend my support to any party, there'd need to be a plan how we can have both of those things.
I think that's a great question. And, you know, it goes to the core of the moment that we're going through. And, you know, in some ways, it has been a dark time in politics, hasn't it? You know, I see the kind of vision that we're trying to propose, because I think, you know, politics is about practical dreams. I think people need a bit of inspiration at the moment. You know, it feels like a second winter of discontent, this election, doesn't it? You know, but even in the midst of these dark nights of this election, right? I think we can inspire people with a different vision of a Wales that is prosperous, that is outward-looking, that is inclusive, that celebrates all the talent of everyone that lives here. I think there's a very, very different vision of the future at the moment, isn't there, in the Conservative Party and the Brexit Party, etc., which is the opposite of that, you know, backward-looking, inward-looking, insular, etc., you know, looking back to a golden age that never existed. I think that we can create an exciting idea, which is of an independent Wales, but, you know, the excitement is about what we could achieve with that independence. What is it for? We could actually become a socially just nation. Instead of, you know, where we've always been, which is behind the curve, we could be at the leading edge in terms of the green industrial revolution. You know, and people might not know this, but we have around the Welsh coast 15% of all of Europe's marine energy, whether we're inside the EU or not, you know. But we're not tapping into that potential at the moment. Why? Because we don't have the power to invest in it. But we could get in there. We could be at the ground level of a great green industrial revolution across the globe. And that's just one example of what we could do. You know, it's an exciting idea, I think, because if we start to think about what Wales could be as a confident, successful, prosperous, independent, socially just country, then people start to think, look, all of the things that we thought were normal when we were growing up in Wales, the last few 40 years, etc., we don't have to accept them. We could abolish homelessness. We could abolish child poverty. There are 200,000 of our children that live in poverty. And we could start now. We could introduce a Welsh child payment, you know, in next year. That would lift 50,000 of our children out of poverty as a down payment of the kind of country that we want to be.
Okay, Mr. Price, I think everybody would agree that leaving one union is taking a lot of time, maybe a lot longer than some people thought. Let's look at the timescale of independence. You want it within 10 years or a referendum within 10 years?
Yeah, we've said, you know, we have an economic plan for closing the prosperity gap. You know, we can do some of that now by being much more ambitious than the kind of approach that we've seen from the existing Welsh Labour government. So we can begin to put the foundations there and inspire people with the possible, right? And then over the course of that decade, show what is possible within the existing powers, albeit limited, and then arrive at a point where we have a conversation as a nation as to where we want to be. And we want to make the case, of course, for Wales becoming an independent country. And you know, it's not about putting up borders. It's not about closing ourselves off. My mother's English. You know, I love England. We want to be good neighbours. I think that what we're talking about is creating a new Britain as well. Because
okay, well, let's just a bit of detail here, Mr. Price. I mean, you say no borders, but we know how difficult Brexit is proving to be in terms of negotiation. We're talking about another withdrawal agreement, another political declaration. I mean, are you talking about a process to undo ourselves from that union similar to the Brexit process? A trade agreement, tariffs?
We've set up a national commission for the first time, which is looking, led by the former Minister Jocelyn Davies, who's looking at these detailed questions. And I think people have legitimate questions, because that wonderful word, indie curious, and as we move from indie curious to indie confident, I think people have legitimate, detailed questions about how is it going to work. People want to see the plan, different to the 2016 referendum, right? We need the plan there ready so that people can make an informed choice. But look, I think that we can do things differently, right? I think that what we need to do is to create a different relationship of partnership on this island and indeed across the whole of Europe, right? So it's not about cutting off, it's not about separatism, it's not about cutting ourselves off. It's about actually creating a new partnership of equals.
Okay, but just before we take a question, Mr. Price, just on the details, are you saying no details yet, but would there be checks on the border? I mean, how would you envisage, we've got such a long, porous border, how do you envisage it?
Well, I think this is a hypothetical within a hypothetical at the moment, because I still hope that we will stay within the European Union, not just Wales, but I want England and Scotland and the Northern Ireland as well, which is, well, it is the key question of this election. So, I want us all of the nations of this island to stay within the European Union, and obviously that creates then a relationship where we're all in the same single market.
We'd have tariffs. I mean, milk going from Carmarthenshire to London supermarkets, for example.
Well, I'm not a defeatist, Bethan. I think we can still win this argument. We've seen the shift in support for Remain in Wales actually further than almost any other part of the UK. So look, we can win this argument over the next few weeks. And in that context, England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland will be partner nations, we'll be neighbours, but it'll be on the basis in the future, I think, not the United Kingdom, so-called, which is based on a concentration of power in one corner, in one nation. We can create a different relationship.
The lady in the front.
So I understand from what you've just told me that your father was a miner. So that means that I can suggest that you probably are familiar with the miner's canary, which was a test as to the air quality in the mines. It's been said that the black individual is comparable to the miner's canary and actually shows the deficits in a civilization, in a society. And I'm actually coming from what was asked previously, actually, which is, how do you mitigate the problems that come with division? Because actually, if you look at the black individual almost as though they are the miner's canary, what they're showing you so far is that ethnic people, black women particularly, are more likely to die after pregnancy in comparison to other people from other ethnic minorities and backgrounds. We're showing that we're more likely to go into prison and be arrested. There are more stop and searches on black individuals. That is a problem that is born out of one of the most historical forms of division. How, when you can't even mitigate those issues currently in this present time, do you plan on ameliorating the issues that would come out of becoming independent?
I think that's a great question. And my own partner is a person of colour, and so indirectly I see the effect that racism in all its forms has in our society. And I think you're absolutely, we only recently saw that Wales not only has one of the highest imprisonment rates of any country in Western Europe, in terms of BAME people, it has one of the most racially unfair levels of incarceration. So we have deep unresolved questions, even Wales. So I think we have to face up to our own difficult questions of our own relationship within our own history, our own culture, our own society in terms of racial justice. The reason that I believe in independence, right, ultimately, is what it could do. What it could do on the whole host of issues, and abolishing poverty, as I said, but also we could be a beacon of justice in the world in terms of our racial integration. We've got a lot of work to do, right? We've got a lot of detailed work to do in all of these areas, but we could be that we could be that clean slate, right, on which we could write the words of a better future. That's why I'm inspired, because, you know, look, people are looking for a change project, right? This is the change project that over the next generation could deliver the kind of Wales that we've dreamt of all of our lives. That's why I went into politics. I was born into a Labour family, right? You know, I ended up in Plaid because I became frustrated, because I wanted to see change, you know. I was given the best possible chance in life. I was one of the last people, probably the last generation, to get a full, you know, student grant, right? Look at young people today, they're not getting that support. We could right that wrong, and the best way to do it, and the best way to right all of the wrongs in Wales, and to make a contribution to global justice as well, is for us to take responsibility for building the nation that we want to be.
Okay. Well, on that note, we have to leave it. Thank you very much. That is it. Our time is up. Thank you to Adam Price, to the audience here at the Temple of Peace and Health in Cardiff, and of course to you for joining us. A reminder that a full list of candidates standing in this election is now available on the BBC website. Brexit Party leader Nigel Farage will be the next to face questions in this series of Leaders Specials. Join Fiona Bruce from Peterborough tonight, 11:15 on BBC One. I'll be back tomorrow night, as usual, with Wales Live. Until then, good night, Nostra.